Hello and welcome to the Chinksey Sports Presents the Premier League show. We are back again after 8 days. Wow, it's been a minute. We are back. There has been growth on the channel. There will continue to be growth, hopefully. Anyway, without any further ado, we head straight into Friday night's relegation battle between Burnley and Luton Town. Friday night under the lights at Turf Moor was the first of 5 televised matches last weekend. In this relegation six-pointer, Burnley took the lead after Wilson Odubert, continuing to star from Burnley's left flank, cut the ball back for Zeki Amdouni to slot home. Two players who I'm sure will be playing Premier League football next season, if they so choose to stay in England, that is. I mentioned 1 or 2 podcasts ago that Luton have good options coming off the bench, like Tahith Chong, Carlton Morris, and Chidezi Ogbene. If either the game is in the balance or they're chasing the game, as was in the case in this particular game, Rob Edwards clearly sees them as impact players coming off the bench, although Ogbene did start this game at right wing back, tucked in behind Andros Townsend. On the balance of play, Luton definitely deserved at least a point and got it, albeit in contentious circumstances. Alfie Doughty, renowned for his tremendous deliveries, especially from dead ball situations, unmarked and in more space than the universe, whipped in a phenomenal Beckham-esque cross from the left wing. James Trafford looked like he would have caught it comfortably had he not been backed into and upended by Elijah Adebayo. As a subsequent result, Carlton Morris headed into an unguarded net. The lack of celebrations from the Luton players was telling though, given the fact that they'd salvaged, or appeared to have salvaged, a late point in such a crucial match. They clearly expected the goal to have been chalked off, but fortunately for them, wasn't. Post-match, Burnley boss Vincent Kompany, who usually cuts a calm and collected figure, raged at the referee and officials, claiming it's a joke and he has to get it right. Burnley will feel hard done by and now have their work cut out trying to stay in the division. They are currently 5 points from safety and their next fixture is against none other than the club he used to captain, Manchester City, away. They lost 6-0 there in the FA Cup quarterfinals last March. So Burnley and Luton's relegation six-pointer ended 1-1. Game on for... Obviously, they go into their winter breaks, so they won't play this week, but they will resume football next week. Well, in 10 days or so, because next week is FA Cup 4th round fixtures. Right, enough of that. Next game was the lunchtime kickoff, the lunchtime West London derby between Chelsea and Fulham. That ended 1-0 to the Blues. Both sides came into this West London derby on the back of Carabao Cup semi-final defeats, but I expected Chelsea to win this game, given their recent form, especially at home. They won this game through a Cole Palmer penalty. After that, they were never really under threat of dropping any points. Chelsea now go into a crucial period of 3 games in 8 days, which could define their season. Firstly, their home semi-final second leg tie against Middlesbrough arguably is the most pivotal of the 3, because a win secures them European football for next season and a place in the Carabao Cup final at Wembley, probably against Liverpool. Secondly, a home FA Cup 4th round win against an Aston Villa side who, along with Brentford and Nottingham Forest, are the only teams to have won at Stamford Bridge this season. So in other words, Chelsea have lost 3 home games all season. Arsenal, Manchester City and Liverpool all tried and failed to win at Stamford Bridge this season. So a win against Aston Villa will put them amongst the favourites to win the trophy, the FA Cup, especially as Arsenal are already out, and one of Tottenham or Manchester City will also be eliminated from the competition. Thirdly, Chelsea, who sit in ninth position, a mere 3 points off of sixth placed West Ham, travel to Anfield on the back of, listen to this, 7 consecutive draws in all competitions spanning several years, including 2 penalty shootout losses against Liverpool. Even more bizarre is the fact that Liverpool haven't beaten Chelsea since September 2020, about 3.5 years, spanning a whopping 9 matches. The two are likely to face one another again in the Carabao Cup final. I'm sure Mauricio Pochettino will be targeting a top 6 finish and a trophy this season. Achieving one or both of those is definitely not out of the question. Marcus Silva's Fulham, on the other hand, find themselves seemingly landlocked in 13th position. They will not break into the top 10 nor get relegated this season. They'll almost certainly finish between 11th and 15th. So Chelsea got themselves a narrow 1-0 victory against West London rivals Fulham to maintain their good recent run of form. The 5:30 fixture at St James's Park between Newcastle United and Manchester City ended 3-2 to the away side. Manchester City continued their quest for an unprecedented 4th consecutive Premier League title with a statement victory at St James's Park. It's little wonder why, despite poor form earlier on in the season, they remained title favourites throughout. When Bernardo Silva put City 1-0 up with a phenomenal yet audacious near post flick, surely it's a cert for goal of the month. You would have been forgiven for thinking that City would go on to win the match by 3 or 4 goals. He then forced a tremendous save from Martin Dubravka, who pushed his effort onto the post. Newcastle then equalised through their sensational Swedish striker Alexander Isak, recently linked with a move to Arsenal, clinically caressed the ball into the back of the net, Thierry Henry style. After Bruno Guimaraes' through ball split the City defence open. Similarly, just 2 minutes later, a simple pass from Dan Burn left Anthony Gordon bearing down on City's goal. The young winger then cut in with obviously City right back Kyle Walker backpedaling and buried it into the back of the net. Newcastle went into the break 2-1 ahead, with the exception of maybe Joe Linton and Sandro Tonali. This was Newcastle's best starting 11, and they were going toe-to-toe with City. The trouble was, though, because of Newcastle's lengthy injury list, there's no depth in the squad, and 17-year-old midfielder Lewis Miley is playing game after game after game with no let-up, no rest. As for Manchester City, Jeremy Doku, who after a short spell out on the sidelines, started this game ahead of the informed Jack Grealish, who himself picked up an injury before the game, was a constant thorn in Newcastle's bush and was causing Newcastle right back Kieran Trippier all sorts of problems, but to no avail. It was only until Pep Guardiola brought on Kevin De Bruyne, who after making his Premier League return after a lengthy 5-month injury layoff, changed the game with a goal and assist in a remarkable 20-minute late cameo. De Bruyne, sporting a new Prince Charming from Shrek Curtin's hairstyle, that's a mouthful that, and a newly found hunger to get his season up and running, wasted no time. It's hard to work out what was more impressive, him passing the ball into the back of the net from 20 yards out, through the eye of a needle, or his defence splitting pass to set up youngster Oscar Bob of Norway for City's 91st minute winner. The win took Manchester City to second place, just 2 points behind leaders Liverpool with the same amount of games played. Things are beginning to look ominous for the rest of the league as the citizens completed their 6th consecutive victory in all competitions. With star striker Erling Haaland still yet to return, perhaps the Joker card still remains in the pack. So that was Friday and Saturday's fixtures. We're on to the two fixtures on Sunday. First of which was at Goodison Park between Everton and Aston Villa that ended in a 0-0 stalemate. In my predictions for this match last week, check out last week's episode 22. I said word for word that I just feel that Sean Dyche will make Villa work really hard to get anything out of this match. He also knows that if his side do not pick up maximum points, they could end the week inside the bottom three. I don't see Everton winning this one, but my prediction is that they'll stifle Villa, who don't travel well, and grind out a crucial point. And luckily for me, I was right on that one. I didn't get the scoreline correct, but I got the result right. And Everton looked very competitive, especially with Abdoulaye Doucouré back in that withdrawn striker position behind Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who squandered a tremendous opportunity when one-on-one with Villa's World Cup winning stopper, Emiliano Martinez. Everton's spine of Jordan Pickford, Braithwaite, Tarkowski, Amadou Onana, Doucouré and Calvert-Lewin should have enough quality to eke out results like this between now and the end of the season to secure survival for the Toffees. Unai Emery's Aston Villa, on the other hand, would probably take this and deem it another point in the bag, as the game could have went either way. So, last game of last weekend was at Old Trafford, and it was the big game of that particular weekend between Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspur. That ended 2 apiece. On last week's podcast, check that out, episode 21, I said that I felt Spurs would score at least twice, but I wasn't entirely sure if that would have been sufficient for them to have won the game. It wasn't. On a balance of play, you could argue that Spurs deserved more than just a share of the spoils, but all things encompassing, they were missing a host of first-team starters such as Dejan Kulusevski, James Maddison, Heung-min Son, Papa Matar, Yves Bissouma, as well as Giovanni Lo Celso. They also had to come back from behind on 2 occasions after Rasmus Højlund put Manchester United 1-0 up after just 3 minutes, and Marcus Rashford put United 2-1 ahead going into half-time. And I think United have had a record since 2012 that whenever they're leading at half-time, they always win that match. So yeah, that record came to an end. Equalizers from Richarlison and Rodrigo Bentancur proved that Spurs have a newly found resilience under their Australian manager, Ange Postecoglou. So Tottenham got themselves a 2-2 draw at Old Trafford. So that is Manchester United's, that's 4 points for them against Manchester United this season. Right, going into this weekend's fixtures, the first of which is the one currently kicked off. Once again, I have no idea what the Arsenal score is, but my prediction, well, I'll tell you that once I've gone through Arsenal and Crystal Palace team news and stats. The pressure is mounting on Arsenal after a horrific run of form, which has seen the Gunners win only once in 7 matches. If they do not beat Palace this afternoon, then they can kiss goodbye to any hopes of winning a title this season. After outplaying Liverpool in the first half of their FA Cup third round encounter, despite creating chance after chance after chance, Arsenal find themselves fighting on just 2 fronts now, the league and the Champions League. They come up against a Crystal Palace side who have won just once in 12 games themselves in all competitions, who are missing Cheikh Doucouré, Jordan Ayew and Michael Olise, 3 players who definitely start for Roy Hodgson's side. I don't think Steve Parish will sack Hodgson this season unless things get really out of hand and it looks like they'll be relegated, because his contract up at the end of the season anyway. And obviously it will not be renewed. What I think they'll do is draft in a new manager, a younger manager, and give him the funds to revamp what is clearly an insipid and aging squad. Right, I can't look beyond an Arsenal win. and I'm going to go for a 2-0 nervy victory for the Gunners. The next fixture today, later on, is the 5:30 kickoff at the G-Tech Stadium between Brentford and Nottingham Forest. Brentford, a side who have one win in 8 games in all competitions, welcome back talismanic striker Ivan Toney after an 8-month ban from participating in betting. For participating in betting. Right, he'll captain the side this evening, and I envisage that he'll want to score at least 10 goals in the remaining 19 fixtures this season. If he can do that, he can propel his struggling side to safety and cement his spot in the England squad alongside Ollie Watkins as Harry Kane's understudy, or main understudy, should I say. Nottingham Forest, on the other hand, are missing a host of first-team players courtesy of AFCON, the most of any Premier League team, if I'm not wrong. Certainly starting players anyway. Have scored at least 2 goals. They've scored at least 2 goals in all 5 of the games that Nuno Espirito Santo has taken charge of, including the morale-boosting victories over Newcastle and Manchester United against all odds. I think this makes for an intriguing matchup, but I'm going for another 2-1 home win for Brentford, with Ivan Toney getting himself on the score sheet for the Bees. Bet against that at your peril. Had to get that one in. So yeah, I've gone for a 2-1 home win for Brentford against Forest. Tomorrow's game will be at Bramall Lane between Sheffield United and West Ham United. The fact that West Ham haven't won and scored only once in the 3 games after their morale-boosting win at the Emirates shouldn't go under the radar. It's no coincidence that since Lucas Paqueta and Mohamed Kudus' absence, David Moyes' side have struggled to create in front of goal. The Hammers played a strong side in their first leg against Championship side Bristol City, with even Jared Bowen starting that game, but they were still held to a draw, 1-1, and ultimately dumped out in the second leg at Ashton Gate. That being said, they're facing a Sheffield United side rooted to the bottom of the table, a whopping 8 points from safety. Chris Wilder's return has made Sheffield United a tougher team to beat, but they've only won 2 league games all season, so I think West Ham should churn out a 2-0 win, albeit hard-fought victory. So I think West Ham will win that 2-0. Tough game. But I think the fact that Sheffield United have to come out and try and play and try and break down West Ham will open up spaces for them. And I think West Ham will exploit that. Right. Following that is, I think it's a 4:30 kickoff at Bournemouth Vitality Stadium between Bournemouth and Liverpool. Last season, Liverpool beat Bournemouth 9-0, if I'm not wrong, but lost the other game 1-0. And obviously, I've gone for a shock win for Bournemouth in this one, as I fancy them to catch table toppers Liverpool cold. Bournemouth have lost just once in 9 games, and incidentally are unbeaten at home since the 2 last met earlier on in the season, a game which ended 2-1 to Liverpool. I just feel with Liverpool's growing list of absentees, they'll be without Trent Alexander-Arnold, Mo Salah, Andy Robertson, Kostas Tsimikas and Endo. That's half of their starting lineup. Whereas Bournemouth, buoyed by former Liverpool striker Dominic Solanke's goals, will be confident of inflicting Liverpool's second league defeat of the season. Liverpool go into this game as favourites, and rightly so, but they haven't always started matches at their best. So I feel if Bournemouth can get themselves 1 or 2 goals up, they could win this match. So as a result, I'm going for a shock 3-1 home win to Bournemouth. Right, to round off this week's fixtures is Monday's game at Brighton's Amex Stadium between Brighton and Wolverhampton Wanderers. When these two sides met earlier on in the season, Brighton were flying and Wolves were stuttering and struggling. Now, There's just 3 points that separate the two sides. When Brighton went to Molineux in August and played them off the park, Wolves fans left in their droves, as it took the Seagulls just 55 minutes to race into a 4-goal lead. Since then, though, things have tailed off slightly for Brighton, and Wolves boss Gary O'Neill has arguably been the manager of the season, or certainly up there with the best of them. I just feel that with Wolves missing Hwang and Ryan Ait-Nouri, who's at the AFCON with Algeria, as well as having to play extra time in the FA Cup replay against Brentford on Tuesday, I think Brighton should have too much for them, and I expect Roberto De Zerbi's side to churn out a 2-1 win. Those were my predictions for episode 22. There were only 5 games last week, and there's only 5 games this week. So it was a quick one, relatively quick one. But I'll be back next week. And as we're edging ever so closer to our target, guys, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and become part of this ever expanding family. Peace. See you next week.